Hello and welcome to the presentation today, which is about misinformation and disinformation as part of the de facto project. So I'm going to go through the overview of the de facto project and then focus on artificial intelligence and how that has been used for misinformation and disinformation in one area. So just as a little bit of an overview, so de facto provides educators and teachers with a set of science-based tools to understand and counter misinformation and disinformation. So this was a programme that's been going on for a number of years and has a number of European partners, as you can see there, from Bulgaria, Belgium, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Italy and here in the UK, which is where I'm presenting this from, which is for TLM, the learning machine. So the disinformation is the creation of false news, a real manufacturing of that news. And the misinformation is the involuntary spreading of false information being disseminated without malice or carelessness or lack of source of verification. It can also be looked at as misinformation is, as it says, without that malice, so it can be quite, it's not done with any harm, whereas disinformation is created to really, as that fake news, really getting it out there to fool you. So the education system has long sought to teach students to manage mental attitudes and critical thinking skills, which are the cornerstone of informed and responsible civic engagement. So with the de facto project, we want to help students to deal with false news and disinformation, deepening aspects such as the evaluation of sources, the request of evidence, the deepening understanding the digital media landscape and the financial factors that govern them. So what's our aim? It's to give students the chance to be not only experienced consumers and responsible producers of news and information, but also to be the authors. And only by doing something you can understand how it really works. So the scenario. So there are numerous studies on the subject all over the world. First of those of the University of Washington. In 2019, the EU Parliament published a document, Automated Tackling of Disinformation, and that maps and analyses the current and future threats of online disinformation. One of the first needs highlighted by this document is to measure the evaluation of the credibility of the sources, as well as transforming this experimental research into practically useful tools. So the de facto approach is the higher education environment is rapidly changing today. Students have an increasing role and responsibility in creating new knowledge, understanding the changing dynamics of the information world, and the ethical use of information, data and studies. In order for students to be aware authors, we have created a kit consisting of numerous tools with educational purposes. So looking here on the left here, these are the four pillars, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in a second, but we've got systemic causality, equivalency and emphasis frames, motivated cognition, frames and framing. Okay, and then you can see here, and this is how it leads into the de facto framework. We've got the edgy layers, harm of content types, intent to mislead and harm, major categories and content types, eggshell model of info credibility. And you can see that leads into the other areas here, which is the case study side of things. So let's have a look at those pillars. So we've got motivated cognition. So it's an important concept in understanding how we perceive the world and why we tend to assign unrealistically high trust to information received by those close to us and whom we hold in high esteem, and members of groups of which we are also part, as opposed to other people and members of other groups. So really, if you think about it, it's those people we respect, could be celebrities, could be industry, it could be close relatives as well, but we're taking what they say as at face value, we're believing what they say. The next one is systemic causality. As opposed to direct cause and effect, is not a naturally occurring learning concept. The explanation is simple. The brain is unfit for this task because it is unable to observe it. The brain deals fairly well with simplistic cause and effect relations. So looking at. So obviously we've got a cause and effect. So thinking about that when we're actually looking at the information. Frames and framing. We know that people think in contexts which are well defined and which have clear semantic roles. And these thinking contexts are known as frames. For example, a school frame, when invoked, contains textbooks, desks, whiteboard, teachers, students. These are all objects with a semantic role of their own which dictates their expected behaviour or function. Frames are a well-known concept in social sciences, which is related to social constructivism. Equivalency and emphasis frames. Equivalency frames refer to statements which are logically equivalent but phrased differently. So thus the phrasing causes individuals to alter their preferences. With emphasis frames, people make different judgments depending on which aspect of the statement was intentionally emphasised by the researchers. So based on these 4 pillars, we've developed a toolbox for educators consisting of classification of the types of misinformation and disinformation, disinformation sample detection algorithms, case studies of disinformation, disinformation creation kit for students, guidelines for fact-based reading and teaching for teachers, plan for elaboration of case studies of misinformation and disinformation for teachers. And there's a list here, as you can see, and I'm just going to pull out a few here. Types of misinformation, and one of the most obvious ones at the top is that satire, parody and meme, one we see a lot of on the internet through social media. Parodies and memes definitely seem to be the ones that do the rounds quite easily. And going down, you've also got the artificial intelligence, which we're going to go into as well, and it does touch on there as the conspiracy theory side of things. We're going to have a look at how mis and disinformation kind of relates to and how artificial intelligence is used. So artificial intelligence is the ability to simulate human intelligence that allows the programmed device to mimic human actions, learning from the surroundings to react accordingly. So you might not realise some of the devices and daily activities which rely on AI technology. If you think about your phones, you've got video games there, going shopping, even the ads that pop up when you're browsing a website, it's all AI that's looking and learning from you to be able to deliver in the sense of advertising, having those adverts that you've been looking at right in front of you again and again. But if you think about banks use it for detecting fraud, predicting changes in stock markets. Insurance companies are employing AI to help them produce policy quotes and assess claims. Helps police forces to identify suspects from grainy CCTV images. In courtrooms, it's offering advice to judges about whether to grant bail, conditions to criminal suspects. Machines with the capability to identify images are helping doctors spot diseases. Algorithms that use machine learning, one of the leading branches of AI, are helping self-driving cars to navigate our complex roads. They are helping linguists to decipher lost languages. And it is helping firms make decisions about who to hire and fire. And even on flights, AI is being used by air traffic controllers to help to keep us safe both in the air and on the ground. But one of the most famous stories relating to AI was Deep Blue, which was an IBM supercomputer that beat the world champion chess player. But it showed the real advancement of this technology because Deep Blue, the computer, actually lost the first match in 1996 to the world champion, but did go on to beat him in 1997. So he learnt, the computer learnt from that first match and ultimately was able to beat the world champion. One of the most recent cases of deep fake, which we're going to look at in a little bit more detail. So deep fake is the ability to put a face or mouth moving on top of an actor or another face and be able to manipulate what's being said and the way you look. Now, this hasn't been used that we know of in malicious ways. Most times deepfake is used, it's flagged up that this is deepfake, but the premise is there for it to be used, and there may have been times that we don't know of yet. So this one is David Beckham, where he can speak 9 languages. Now it's very obvious he's not, because the voice changes, so they do use different voices, but his mouth is moving perfectly to the languages that are being said. So I'm just going to play a short part of this. I'm just going to zoom it across to this.
Isn't just any disease. It's the deadliest disease there's ever been.
Se dice que ha matado más de la mitad de la población que ha existido.
بليون مليون تاع مريض
وما زالت تقتل طفلا كل دقيقتين.
Mais nous pouvons y mettre fin. Nous savons comment, nous en avons la possibilité.
हमें और अधिक कार्रवाई की जरूरत है.
我们需要让世界领导人关注。
Hivyo tunazindua kampeni ya sauti.
Omwele bawari upi malaria.
Speak up and say, malaria must die. One.
So you can see there how that was so easy, for his mouth was manipulated around those new voices. So this is another example here of how deepfake has been used. And in this one, Donald Trump has been put into a hugely popular scene from Breaking Bad, and his voice has been manipulated in as well through another piece of AI, which is Stable Voices. So he has had nothing to do with this. He is not there, and his voice hasn't been used. I'm just going to show a short part of that. Skip to the bit where we're showing.
Just forget it. You want to stay out of jail, don't you? You want to keep your money and your freedom, because I've got 3 little letters for you. IRS. Okay. Here's you, right? Red Jared, get it? Okay. Here's your cash. You're out on the town. You're partying hard, grabbing cliffs of the chickie babes. Well, who's this? It's the tax man. What?
So you can see there the way the face and the voice have been manipulated into that scene.
Watching your.
So this is another example, and this one, although this is an impersonator on Saturday Night Live, now he is actually doing the voice, so we know that that's not manipulated. And I actually watched this the first time round and didn't see that his face changed, because I didn't read it, I just wanted to watch it. And I hadn't noticed until I went back and I had to look at it, and I thought, oh, his face looks different. So as he starts to impersonate somebody, the 2 actors, which is Al Pacino and Arnold Schwarzenegger, his face changes. So I'm going to show you the sections of that. So I'm just going to fast forward to that bit.
It is kitchen.
There you go. So you
Honey's
can
like
see
giving
that's
them
his
little
face
instructions.
there,
Yeah, it was like
and now his face has
if I
changed.
walk into this kitchen and I see a cantaloupe on that table, I will lose my mind.
Those are the instructions I give.
And then his face is back to his original face. And same again with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's get the right section here.
Like
So it's his face.
in boxers, like smoking a cigar, like playing chess.
And very smoothly, his face has now changed.
And he's like, yeah, kind of.
Amazing to see how smooth that was from one face to another, and without actually realising, without having it pointed out, it would be so easy to watch that without realising his face had changed.
Like King Kong.
So then you've got the question then is, okay, this is great if it's part of a parody, or it's put out there and it's showing how technology has been used. It's used in films, fantastic for adding those actors in that are no longer with us. But then you've got like, well, what's the threat of using it, for instance, in politics? Can we really believe what we see? Do we trust who's in front of us on camera? And this is an example of, it is clearly labelled as deep fake. It's showing how it could be used and how 2 opposing opponents for the recent general election are actually urging the public to vote for their opponent.
Once upon a time I called for a kind of gentler polity. However, we, the political class here in Westminster, have failed, and the consequences have been disastrous for our society. That's why I'm taking on the toxic culture in Parliament. I'm urging all Labour members and supporters to consider people before privilege and back Boris Johnson to continue as our Prime Minister.
Hi folks, I am here with a very special message. Since that momentous day in 2016, division has coursed through our country as we argue with fantastic passion, vim and vigour about Brexit. My friends, I wish to rise above this divide and endorse my worthy opponent, Right Honourable Jeremy Corbyn, to be Prime Minister of our United Kingdom. Only he, not I, can make Britain great again. Huzzah! Alas, why should you believe me? Much like Odysseus and his encounter with the Cyclops Polyphemus, I too am nobody. I am a fake bear. A deep fake, to be precise. And as you can see, even I, the Prime Minister, can be affected by them. Yes.
So you can see there, obviously, that's highlighting the potential threats of deepfake and how it could be used to manipulate what we see and manipulate then our thoughts and ultimately our decisions that could affect our way of life. So OpenAI it is a text generator. It was created originally in August 2019. It was created by a research firm, and due to the potential abuse of using this AI, what it could have caused, it was not actually released. Following this, the company has developed a new, more powerful version of this system. So this new system can create abusive spam and fake news. It is out there creating on the World Wide Web and states it is an artificial intelligence system that generates realistic stories, poems and articles have been updated, with some claiming it is almost as good as a human writer. So you think about the content that you read and whether it is actually being written by a human. There are umpteen accounts of tweets that have been written through AI to generate trending, to get your attention, and you can see the potential benefits for companies using it to actually get obviously their message across, but also the threats of it for passing on mis and disinformation. So the future, so the biggest threat of AI has on humanity at this time is the programming. If the programmer has bias or prejudice, this could be built into the program and the AI could be used for dangerous or threatening aspects. Autonomous weapons are programmed device and AI built into it. If this technology fell into or was created by the wrong hands, then there could be devastating consequences. So just have a look at the pillars again. So if we think about motivated cognition, that's going to be looking at the use of AI and against the perception that AI is just a human-like robot. The use of AI and against the perception that AI is self-contained and thinks for itself. We have those perceptions of what AI is, and that can come from what we've seen in films and what people have said. And really, AI is not just that, as I've shown there. It's used in so many different ways, and it's understanding that it is software, it's something that's being developed, something that's used, but we all think of artificial intelligence as that human-like robot. Systemic causality, the real cause behind advancements in technology. The program drives the learning that AI follows, the effect the programmer has on the AI produced. So remember, this is the cause and effect. The AI has different functions within devices and affects the lives we lead. The effect the use of AI has had on the world around us and what is next. Frames and framing. To look at respected industries in the use of AI. Depending on what people interact with, can directly impact the AI response to it. What we see cannot always be believed, but when presented by respected individuals, judgments can be clouded. How AI could be used to manipulate others' perception. Respected individuals and how their opinions can impact our perception of the use of AI. Someone like Stephen Hawking, who you respect what he says. He says that if AI continues to develop, then it could be the end of the human race. That's a massive thing to actually come out with, and we are going to respect what he says, and so that's going to impact on our perception of artificial intelligence. And then equivalency and emphasis frames. Films emphasise the perception that AI is a human-like robot. The actual current usage of AI across industries can show equivalence to usage and impact. Social media outlets and AI emphasis on the news and adverts to meet a wider audience. The impact on advertising has seen numerous businesses utilising the same methods, showing equivalence between cases. The perception of AI and the equivalence across, for example, election campaigns. Dependent on the individual speaking about the use of AI can show emphasis on the individual's perception and how it's passed on. And equivalence can be seen through the different individuals speaking out about the same concerns and the impact of technology could have on the future. So if we just take you to have a look at the website where everything is. So we've got, this is the web address up here, defacto.space, and this is the main the landing page, the home page, where we've got lots of information with the drop downs at the top within certain areas. So it's going to go into those pillars and give you more information there, and some of the statements I've used are from within this website. So you've got the links there, but you've also got links here, so we can go into those and look at those in more detail. So I have opened the pages to show you specifically across the top, just to make things a bit easier, but everything is found within this website. So here we've got the disinformation games, and this is where there's lots of information for you to take away. So we've got the case studies, and this is what you can be using. So there's lots of information on here. So it's a game online, so it's worth having a look at those and see how they can be used. We've also got more information within this section, which is the results, documents and tools. And we've got types of disinformation. So you can see there's lots, and each one of these links to a separate page with more information. There's aspects that are still that are coming soon, but there's lots here that can be downloaded and utilised. Then we've also got the disinformation production kit. So again, you've got the information at the top, and as we go down, there are lots of tools here, including links to sites that can, these web pages that can help you deliver this. So obviously looking at memes here, it's showing you some where to go and you can go and create them. So you can have a look at those, clicking on them, and giving you the information and the related pillars. It also gives you how it can be used within the classroom. As you go down, there's lots here, and as you can see, I'm right at the top of the scroll down, so there's plenty of tools here to have a look at. So I would urge you to go and have a look at that website and see what you can find, and obviously utilise it as much as you can in your delivery of mis- and disinformation learning. Thank you for your time. I hope you found that useful. Please go and check out defacto.space and have a look more at that information there. Thank you very much.